You are Locked On Bulls Postcast, part of Locked On Sports Chicago on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome in to the Locked On Bulls Postcast here on the Locked On Sports Chicago YouTube channel. We are back after the All-Star break, and the Bulls start the second half of the season, or the post-All-Star break of the season, the way the first one ended, with a loss to the New York Knicks, 113-111 in overtime. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. So tonight on the show, we're going to talk about, obviously, a little bit of a bummer of the game there. I mean, the tank is good. The tank is on. The tank is good. But it's a bummer of a game to lose like that. You know, you're always still pulling from your team, I would say. And you got a shot to hit a game winner. I don't think the Bulls have hit a game winner this season, now that I think about it, honestly. A lot of close games that they've won. Most of them they've obviously lost, but unable to get the game winner from both Lonzo Ball, Vucevic in regulation and in overtime. We're going to talk about the injuries that happened in this game because it feels like they might dramatically impact the Bulls over the next at least week with both Jalen Smith and Ayo, plus some post-All-Star break questions. I was curious what would change from Billy Donovan coming out of the break, if we would see a different rotation, if we would see certain guys get more playing time, and we did. So we're going to talk about that in the second segment, and then we'll wrap up the show with the best and worst moments of this game and our tank/play-in update. But the Bulls lose this game 113-111 to the New York Knicks. Let's just start there at the very end of both regulation and in overtime. Then we'll kind of work our way backwards through what happened in this game. So Lonzo Ball is wide open at the end of the fourth quarter there. He even stops, hits another dribble. It almost looked like his free throw shot from the top of the three-point line. He misses it. Vucevic and then eventually gets another shot at it after the Bulls get the ball back. And he's got Bridges. I mean, he's got him one-on-one. He's there to win the game, and he goes to his right, and they make an incredible play. He makes an incredible play against Vuce there in the post, and that's where, you talk about Nikola Vucevic and what has gone wrong and what has fell short in his career as a member of the Bulls. And even though we all thought he was going to be traded at the deadline, I think that play is kind of not to pick on him too much there, but you're expected to make those, and he didn't make it there, and then he didn't make it again in overtime. Now, in overtime, obviously, the Bulls are down by quite a few points. I think it got to 5 points there at the end. No, I think it was 7 points. It was 113-106 or 111-106 there before the Bulls made that final push. So they had a chance at it. We saw some good moments, I think, at the very, very end, but the turnovers were a huge problem with this game at the beginning. And then they came back and they really reared their head at the end of the game as well. Where we saw, I think, today in this game, what you really saw was not just a bad basketball team in a lot of ways versus a good basketball team with the turnovers. I think this was a game where you look at what happened at the end results for the Bulls and you would say, yeah, this is a youthful basketball team. I can't say young because they didn't fully tank, and you've got Lonzo and Vooch as part of your starting lineup, the two veterans that, again, missed the shots at the end of the fourth quarter. But some of the stuff we saw from Josh Giddey in overtime and just throughout the entire game, obviously losing Ayo out there is tough. Interesting decision to bring in Kevin Huerter at the end of the game, and I know Vooch gets the final shot, but just as a threat to be out there, I think is an interesting choice with the way that he's played so far as a member of the Bulls, which has been largely not good, honestly. There's really no other way around it to say with Kevin Huerter. But we saw the Bulls, I think throughout this game, now kind of working our way backwards besides those shots. And look, they were all good plays. This isn't one of those where I think you look at what happened at the end result of overtime and you would blame a coach or and regulation more specifically. But the end of overtime, Kobe White's got it. He's just kind of stuck at the top of the key. But he gets it to Vooch, and Vooch just misses the shot. There's really no other way to put it. This game is not one where I would look at a, play design element of this for the Chicago Bulls and say, hey, Billy Donovan and his staff fell out short. Lonzo Ball was wide open. Vooch got the ball with a chance to win it 2 times, and they just didn't get it done. But they were down by 11 points, and obviously you get it back in the fourth quarter. What was it, 7 lead changes there in the fourth quarter. So they're going back and forth after being down quite a bit. And, that's where, again, this team, one thing before the All-Star break that stood out to me and that I think is important for the young guys on this roster as you eventually try to turn this thing around, is you hate to see if your team was full of quitters. And I think that this team has proven again in a positive way that they're not. That they, being down by 11 points coming out of the break where you've got nothing to really play for. I know they're in the play-in tournament still as of this moment, but where the season's at when you trade away Zach LaVine and they don't fold up and just get rolled over in this game. I think does say a positive thing about the Bulls, even though obviously like the way they will perform poorly against the worst teams in the league, which they are part of, but like they'll play even worse against the bottom barrel of the team. They didn't roll over and die against the New York Knicks. So that's a positive. Like I'm going to take it there. Like even though I want them at this point to tank, I don't want them to be objectively terrible. This is really almost like the perfect game to lose for the Bulls at this point, where it's competitive. It gives your fans that are still engaged in this team something somewhat entertaining to watch. And then they lose in the end. And that really is kind of the best of both worlds, it feels like, for the Bulls, where we're all entertained, but we're all focused on where they're going to end up in the lottery. But then again, the one part of this game that it's still big picture kind of blows my mind is I go back to that report out of Joe Cowley from the Sun-Times that they're going to potentially look to build this thing around Josh Giddey versus Kobe White. And I know he's out there at the end this time, but the turnovers, man, are so bad for Josh Giddey in this game. And he played overall. He played pretty well besides that. But even at the beginning of this game, there was a couple passes where he's just getting so deep into the post or to the basket where he's turning around and he's firing the ball backwards to Vooch, but it's really out of control. So I thought Giddey really looked largely in this game offensively at times looked out of control. But when you talk about the idea of building around Josh Giddey, this is a game where you're like, okay, I can logically get this. 27 points, 11 of 18 from the field, 4 of 6 from the three-point line, 16 rebounds in the game. Obviously, with Josh Giddey, one thing we all know not to expect is consistent three-point shooting. So going 4 for 6 is not something like I would expect a repeat performance of on Saturday. But when he can hit those, it shows you like where his game can go. And we've seen that since the very beginning of the season, that when he's hitting threes, which is, again, sometimes few and far between, what it does for his game, because he's always going to take the shots. Like, he's not a guy who's afraid to shoot, which is a good thing, I would say. You don't want a guy you have to be a threat. You don't want guys to treat you completely like they would treat Russell Westbrook at times in this league, where they just totally sag off you because they know you got no shot to make them. So on a night like tonight, it does bring a different level to your offense. And for tonight, I'm like, okay, I see the vision. I just don't see the consistency with Josh Giddey offensively to do it. But then again, some of the recklessness that he played with in tonight's game, I just think leaves a lot to be desired about what the Chicago Bulls are at this point in the season and where they are going forward as well. Make sure you hit that subscribe button to the Locked On Bulls POSTCAST, the Locked On Sports Chicago YouTube channel, that is. If you're new here for the first time or just checking us back out and you forgot after the All-Star break, we go live after almost every single Bulls game. We will miss Saturday's game, but then we'll be live every game basically the rest of the year, maybe except for when the Cubs are playing, because we'll be here after every Cubs game as well. We'll be back for Bears and Notre Dame football as well. So let's talk about some of the changes we saw from Billy Donovan in this game. I was curious, with time off, you don't unload the 3 new guys to this roster at the deadline like many thought they were going to try to do. Zach Collins, Herter, and Trey Jones. So the rotation I thought was going to look a little bit different coming out of the All-Star break since those guys were here. I was curious who was going to lose playing time. We saw some of that. So just something like to keep our eye on for the rest of the season. We'll talk about that next. Plus the injuries, the 2 big injuries that happened in this game. And hopefully we'll get some updates from Billy Donovan as we start talking about that as well in the next segment. It is the Locked On Bulls postcast here on the Locked On Sports Chicago YouTube channel. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started. There's no better place to get in on it than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can live bet through games, so even if you miss the opening tip or want to bet on the fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay. Obviously, the Bulls were plus 12.5 in this game tonight, so if you bet on the Bulls tonight, you would have covered. The Bulls might be one of those teams this year where If they've got a sizable lead against a good basketball team at any point in a game this year, might be looking the other way to see what I can get on the money line or even just covering the spread. But obviously, again, they covered it versus the Knicks tonight. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every bet more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Zach says here in the chat, Lonzo over 7.5 points. Thought, with him in the lineup, maybe that'd be a little higher than it was like that before a game. Also, Zach from earlier in the chat said, you just want to watch these a young team that fights. These young guys fight. I agree. I don't want to see a team roll over and die. I want to enjoy doing these postcast shows. I want to enjoy watching Bulls basketball. They can lose these games, but I just don't want them to quit on any given night. So coming out of the break, what kind of changes were we going to see from this team was a question that I was probably the most intrigued by, honestly, going into this game, because we hadn't really heard of, is Modest Buzelis going to stick in the lineup? Tough performance in the dunk contest, dude. Zach LaVine obviously didn't help you too much. He apparently did make that dunk that he was trying to, make for ever in practice the other day. So at least he could make it, but that was a tough performance for Buzelis in the dunk contest in what was the worst All-Star weekend, it felt like, of all time for the NBA. But so Modest Buzelis stays in the starting lineup. Now, the way he played wasn't great, and if Ayo would not have got hurt in overtime there, I do wonder if we would have seen a quick change on Saturday. But we see the game start with Modest Buzelis, Nikola Vucevic, Lonzo, Kobe White, and Josh Giddey is your starting lineup. So that I enjoy. That I like, because I want to see Modest continue to be a member of the starting rotation. That no matter what happens this season, whether the Philadelphia 76ers can't help you out enough, and you do end up, still somehow making the play-in tournament because also the Brooklyn Nets can't help you and the Bulls are just kind of stuck to no fault of their own, which, I don't think is going to be happening, but it's hard to think the 76ers are going to pass you at this point, so we really are probably focusing on Brooklyn at this point. But I was hoping no matter what the decision was, that with Lonzo returning after being out for obviously the last 4 games, that with him coming back in the lineup, we would continue to see Modest Buzelis in the starting lineup. And Billy Donovan, for me, he checked that box. So I like that a lot. I hope it continues, even as Ayo recovers, from whatever this injury is going to be this season, because it didn't look great there. Whatever happened, going for the ball, he's holding his wrist, it looks like. Obviously called the trainers over immediately. So again, even though, yes, you're trying to tank, I don't think having Ayo and Jalen Smith out there is going to hurt your tanking options at this point in the season. But just to go there real quick before we go into kind of the rest of the rotation and things that happened. So obviously the Jalen Smith play is nasty. I'm going to sound like a terrible person here. There's really no other way for me to, it looked like Jalen Smith was flopping the first time I saw the highlight, but he was on the ground forever. I can't believe they don't stop play when a guy is on the ground rolling over in pain. And they're just ripping shots, the Knicks are, and getting rebounds. And, there's 4 guys in the paint, and he's just laying there on the ground. I know you can't. I guess you could, but, the Knicks don't need to, throw the ball out of bounds or call a timeout or anything. But part of me does wonder if it's, it'd be better for the situation just to call it referee timeout, give the Knicks the ball back, start the shot clock over, and it's just that kind of sucks for the Bulls. But Jalen is just on the ground in a lot of pain at that point. So I'm really curious, how bad his injury is going to end up being. But obviously, it was very clear, he was not coming back into this basketball game as soon as he walked off the court. We even saw, he staggers off the court there as he's walking towards the bench. So that was a tough one for Jalen Smith. And again, the Ayo one, it's a weird injury. It doesn't look like a ton, but definitely looks like he is not healthy. So it'll just be interesting to see what happens next, because when you do think again about the core of this team, I do think that, Ayo specifically is one of the guys that's going to be here with Buzelis in terms of what you're building. So the more that he's out there, the more answers I think you get to see from the Chicago Bulls in their future. But you look at the rotation in this game. So Buzelis plays 24 minutes. Definitely think that's a reflection of how he played in this game because obviously, again, wasn't his best performance. 2 for 8 from the field, 1 for 6 from the three-point line. Was missing him left and right early. He did have 7 assists. 7 rebounds on the night and 1 block and 1 assist. So not his best performance. This will be the first time in the last, I guess it was the last 8 games that Modest Buzelis was not in double-digit points. So even though at times, saying that stat kind of felt like that's a low bar, I think for a guy like Buzelis who's developing in the way that he is, you want to see him get into double-digit points. And he didn't get that done in this game. But he stays in the starting lineup again, so I really like that. Now, we don't see Dalen Terry play at all in this game. That I think is interesting because while I'm not going to sit here and act like I'm a Dalen Terry believer at this point, he is a young guy. Think about the future of this team, guys you're going to build around. There's a logical conclusion that he could be part of that still. He could be a guy that is on this team for a while, and you want to see what his role is going to be. Well, he does not play, coach's decision, and we see Kevin Huerter play 19 minutes, and we see Trey Jones play 13 minutes. We see Julian Phillips play 23 minutes, but Dalen Terry does not play at all in this game. Now, we know Billy Donovan's been really up and down with his rotations this year, and guys who fall out of favor and then fall back into favor. Julian Phillips is a great example of this, where he plays major minutes and then doesn't touch the court until the end of the fourth quarter in certain games, and usually in blowouts. So he's been all over the place. But I just think it's interesting to note that, coming out of the All-Star break, the one guy immediately who falls out of Billy Donovan's rotation is Dalen Terry. I think that says a lot about where they think he is right now because they automatically put him behind Kevin Huerter and Trey Jones and Julian Phillips again. And while Phillips was playing some good basketball tonight, actually, just to see him get all those minutes where Terry gets 0, that was very, very interesting to note. Now, we saw Zach Collins play quite a bit tonight in this game, plays 15 minutes. That, again, only, though, feels like he was playing because of what happened to Jalen Smith. So if Jalen Smith doesn't get hurt, I don't think we're going to see these Zach Collins minutes be all over the place this year and be heavily involved in the offense, or just be involved in this team at this point. So this might be let's assume here for a second here, Jalen Smith has a concussion the way he stumbled off the court. A week or two, he's out of the lineup. Maybe Zach Collins will earn his way into a rotation. I still don't understand why Billy Donovan won't play, Jalen Smith or Zach Collins with Vooch at times or whatever. They won't do it. They won't go big. They just don't think that that's going to be their strategy this season. Even though the way the season's gone, if they're trying to win, to never change that philosophically, it's the one part of the season that a little strange to me that Billy Donovan seems very stubborn on, that he won't try to play 2 big men at the same time. And this is the biggest starting lineup we've seen in months. With everyone healthy, except for, obviously with Patrick Williams not being out there. But, Buzelis entering the starting lineup. Before that, it's been 4 guards and Vooch before Buzelis entered the starting lineup. But yeah, I would like to see, I think from this game, I want to see more Julian Phillips. What more does this kid have to develop into? What more can he be? Because if you're going to bump out Terry out of the rotation, someone's got to take it. And no offense to Kevin Huerter, and no offense to Trey Jones, I just don't care. They're not future pieces of the Chicago Bulls. They are just guys who are on the basketball team, and we will not see them be, massively involved in this team in the future. I mean, both those guys, almost the easy bet on FanDuel will be not on the roster in 2026. Would be the easy money, it feels like, for all 3 of those guys after not being able to, move them at the deadline. I'm just looking here, trying to get an update here. The Bleacher Nation Bulls said the most elite tank loss yet. I do agree. It is that. And the update with Patrick Williams, he received a PRP injection to treat tendonitis in his right knee. He's going to be reevaluated in 2 weeks. So, again, with Patrick Williams, that's a lot of time to miss. That contract looks worse and worse because the play itself, but then to be out constantly is really tough. Jalen Smith here, shout out to Zach in the chat, giving little updates. Jalen Smith officially in concussion protocol. Yeah, that was a tough one. Again, I feel terrible for saying it, but even as he's in pain, when they showed the first replay, I'm he didn't get hit that hard, but they must have just got him right in the chin, in the spot that just knocks you out at that point, man, because he was down there for a while. So in our final segment, we'll wrap up the show next. Best and worst moments of the game tonight. Won't be a ton of them until the end there, of the best moments. A lot of the worst moments. At one point being down 11 and then the way the game ended. And we'll do our play-in tournament and tankathon update and / spin. We'll do that next year on the Locked On Bulls postcast on the Locked On Sports Chicago YouTube channel. All right, final segment here. Best and worst moments of the game. Worst moments. I would say all 3 possessions of the final 2 shots of the fourth quarter and the final possession there of overtime. Again, I probably didn't spend enough time on this. The first one there, the Kobe White just being stuck in the mud there at the top of the 3-point line. When he went up and under, I actually thought before he passed it off, I thought he was going to try to shoot it. It kind of looked like, because we've seen him do stuff like that before. So I actually thought like he was going to do that as well, which was going to be an interesting shot. But all 3 of those possessions are definitely the worst moments of the game. Lonzo Ball looking like he's taking a free throw from the top of the key. Can't get it done. Vooch getting blocked, and then Vooch just missing it again in overtime. I'm just going to say the best moments of this game is really just the 11-point comeback and then going back and forth in the fourth quarter. Because, again, to reiterate, this is a good tank loss, and I appreciate it's a basketball team not quitting because we have to watch them day in and day out. We saw what a quitting team looked like with the Bears this last season after Matt Eberflus got fired, or before he got leading into him getting fired. Those are not enjoyable teams to watch. So if you're going to lose, at least give me something enjoyable to root for in the process. And then just kind of 50-50 here. I would just say Josh Giddey's performance in this game. Like overall, like there was a lot of really positive moments again. 16 rebounds, 27 points, 4 for 6 from the 3-point line, a lot of turnovers, and just passes that were reckless, bad, terrible, all the above from Josh Giddey in this game. So where do the Bulls stand right now looking at the NBA standings, looking at the play-in tournament? So only of the 3 teams, the Bulls, 76ers, and Nets, actually all 3 teams were in action tonight. The Cavaliers, I thought the Nets were off tonight. The Cavs win 110-97 against the Nets. The Celtics win 124-104 against the Philadelphia 76ers. So the Bulls still sit at 1.5 games above both of those teams in the play-in tournament. The Bulls have lost 5 straight, 3 of 7 in the last 10. The Philadelphia 76ers have lost 6 straight. They're 6-4. They're 2-8 in their last 10, and the Brooklyn Nets are 6-4 in their last 10, but they lose tonight. So they're trying to overcome it. Tomorrow night, or I guess Saturday night, we will see a change in this regardless. Again, the Bulls, like how Brooklyn closed the gap a little bit, again, they will play the Philadelphia 76ers on Saturday. So after the Bulls game, and since it's pretty much I would say a day game at this point, a 4 o'clock Central start time, the 76ers Nets game starts at 6:30. So after the Bulls will end that game up either a game and a half or a half game up, or a game up, or 2 games up, sorry. Math is hard sometimes. I'm terrible at standings. So they will end up either a game or 2 games up on the 76ers or Nets at the end of that game, but then that will change pretty dramatically. So I think we're rooting for the Brooklyn Nets on Saturday again. I think the Philadelphia 76ers are cooked. Paul George, I still can't get over that 37-minute 2-point game that he had the other night. Just a total disaster contract for the Philadelphia 76ers. It's easily the worst contract in the entire NBA right now, and it's really not even particularly close to where it stands right now. So that's where the Bulls are at in terms of the play-in tournament. Now let's go to our Tankathon update here. So we've done this twice now, our simulator. The Bulls still sit at the 8th lottery spot, 6% chance to get the number 1 overall pick. We've spun it twice. Both times the Bulls have gotten the 9th pick in our Tankathon lottery simulator. We'll do it one more time tonight. Oh, look at that. The Chicago Bulls end up with the 4th pick in the NBA draft. Now, I think that would be a disappointment because it feels like the top 3 guys are the ones you want. So I feel like just missing out. But the 4th pick in the draft would be nice. Maybe you can find your way into the top 3 by some miracle in itself. But at least in this simulator, the Bulls get the 4th pick. So hopefully that's what we're rooting for here. We're rooting for good games, more modest Buzelis, maybe some more Julian Phillips, but more modest Buzelis specifically. We'll keep an eye on Dalen Terry, what his role is on the team the rest of the season. And we're hoping for tank losses, good tank losses. That's what we want the rest of the year. So that will do it for this episode of the Locked On Bulls Postcast. My name's Joe George. Remember, hit that subscribe button to the YouTube channel. We go live after every single Bulls, Cubs, Bears, Notre Dame game. Also, at some point this year, we will be adding some Bears content to the channel as well. So come on over, hit that. If you want to listen to the audio as well, that's available. Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your audio, just find the Locked On Bulls audio feed. Their podcast is dropped there daily, as well as is our post-game audio shows as well. So that will do it for us. Thank you for watching. We will be off on Saturday, my little guy's birthday party is this weekend, so I will not be available to do a postcast show for the Chicago Bulls. If they were good, maybe I would be there, but they're not good enough to not be spending time with the family this weekend. So we'll be back for the Bulls next game after that. So thanks for watching. We will talk to you next time. Peace.